Good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting of the Buckfield Select Board to order for March 18, 2020. Business. Approve the draft warrant for the public hearing.
So I did include this, a copy of the draft warrant in there.
Yep.
Based off discussions, if there's anything I need to change, just let me know. You're not approving the actual warrant, you're just approving what you're gonna present at that public hearing on the 1st. So if there's any changes that need to be made, we should do it now. The only changes I made to the part numbers are on that one sheet. Was we discussed the paid family medical leave, the $5,000, the wage adjustment to make up for that money. I think I got it all.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to talk about just some of the language here. So before we do that, make a motion. So then we can, so I will to approve the draft warrant for the public hearing of the 2025-2026 municipal budget.
I'll second.
All right, discussion.
The numbers all look correct. Just some of the language and the formatting thought maybe we could look at. So on the bottom of page 1, the inclusion of the public safety budget includes fire, rescue, emergency, that area. The first thing I was thinking of, sometimes I think we make assumptions about language. And the word revenue isn't a term that is used in a lot of places outside of, should I close that door? Thank you, Kim. That there may be some confusion as to what revenue is. And case in point, there are times that people vote no on accepting revenue. And I'm not sure if certainly people can vote to not accept revenue, but sometimes I don't understand why people would say, no, we don't want to take money in. So maybe putting in parentheses the word incoming funds after the word revenue, or words, this will reduce taxes, something like that to just more clearly define what we're talking about in there.
Yeah.
I also was wondering if maybe we should put a similar statement in other areas. For instance, when we look at general government, our administration brings in a fair amount of revenue. So in as much as this is what we need to the costs, that to let people know the amount of revenue we anticipate. And the same thing with the library. It isn't a lot, but the library does generate revenue. So perhaps including a similar statement in the other areas. And then, so on page 1, the final line for Article 5 explanation is on the next page.
Yeah, I thought I'd fixed that, but apparently,
Formatting issue.
Yeah.
But maybe almost just so those last three lines to set it up almost as a math equation. So proposed budget minus proposed revenue equals
Mhm.
the amount to be raised through taxation.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
one more way to set it up for people to better understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
You can put words if approved or.
Well, we still need to raise the money. Right, you have to. The town has to vote to raise this amount of money. Then that will get reduced if they approve the revenues.
Mhm.
Right, but raised through taxation, because we could raise this much through accepting revenues.
no, it has to be you have to budget the full budget.
Right,
Right, but when we look right here, it's just listed, proposed budget, proposed revenue, total to be raised through taxation.
Mhm.
Which is the first line minus the second line
Correct.
equals the third line.
Right.
So if, just by turning that into showing that that's
Mhm.
the math equation.
Mhm.
Right, this is what it's going to cost us. If you accept the potential revenue, then this is what you have to pay in taxes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Just anything we can do to
Yeah.
clarify this. But I also, we need to be cognizant that this does not become a 50-page document.
Right.
And
that's our chance to do it. It's on the here, we could certainly,
Mhm.
under our explanations, make that case,
Mhm.
even if the article itself seems somewhat technical.
Mhm.
On the top of page 2, I think the word through.
Sorry, I'm trying to get this up so I can make these changes in real time, because if I wait till after this meeting, it's gonna be all messed up.
Mhm.
Would it be easier if we tabled this and moved on to something else while you do technical things?
I'm just downloading it and opening it up right now,
Oh,
so if we. What the heck? This computer is good.
Mhm.
Whatever, I'll just make notes and I'll just fix it.
Okay.
just make sure I give you, I've written it all down here, Cameron, so make sure you grab this out of my hands. So I think that that's just a typo, the
Mhm.
word through at the top of page 2.
Top of page 2, which one?
Top of page 2,
Article
right under
6.
taxation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate through a total of 35.
Yeah, it's because the year before it said through taxation, which
Right.
was something that we didn't need,
Right.
so through should be struck.
No worries.
I think that was it. It is my opinion that you did fantastic job getting this as succinct and clear as possible. That's a lot of information to present, and you did it in 5 pages.
Mhm.
Kudos to you.
Get into it. So I've got no. So obviously I'm not gonna do that here, but I mean, tonight on the spot, but do you want me to include the individual revenue lines for general government, public works, community? It won't be 5 pages, but obviously I can add that in there. Just to kind of give a better gauge like I did on the public safety one.
Mm.
Like do the same similar thing.
and I'm torn, the consistency of it might be good. But when we look at these, the big ticket, the 446,000 for general governance, the 255,000 for public safety, those are the big math numbers. So to do general government, public safety, and solid waste. Those would be the three I would suggest including. And then if other people think to do all of them for consistency's sake. And then maybe on page 3, this line right here, approval of state revenues reduces the amount to be taxed. Maybe center that and make it bigger.
I agree, yeah, center it.
Same with 11.
Mhm.
I mean, not 11, yeah, no, 11.
Yes,
12.
yep. Article 11 and Article 12. So there's that big difference between this is the budget. And if we accept this, this is what it's going to cost the town.
Mhm.
That's a.
Makes it easier. I can see what's going on in Zoom. So how did you, on Article 5, how did you want me to redo this? I've got notes that say incoming funds reduces taxes.
Whatever wording people think would be best. So the fire and rescue department budgets are offset by revenue, parentheses, incoming funds, or to reduce taxes.
Yeah, payments to the town.
Outside payments to the town.
Yeah, does that sound right?
Are they all up there?
I got incoming funds
I
there.
think incoming.
Incoming funds,
Yeah,
okay.
something other than just revenue.
Make it a little bit bigger for you. Proposed budget.
So then proposed budget, you could even do it all in one straight line. Proposed budget minus proposed revenue equals.
I mean, people can relate to costs and income, right?
Or since you used revenue in the paragraph above. No, I think cost and income, yeah.
Well,
I mean, it still says,
Yeah.
you need to be consistent, right? Revenue, if you're
Well,
accepting revenue.
we have to use revenue legally.
So that,
All we're doing is just adding a term that more people
Yeah, I think that
relate
looks
to.
good.
Can you see that screen, Peter?
I can see it.
Incoming.
So you have
And then-
revenue, incoming funds.
And then do,
No, but you could do that, but I would set it up literally as a map. So,
Right, like
I
have an
think-
underline or revenue and a
Oops.
minus
right,
symbol. in front.
minus, and then equals total to be raised through taxation.
of course, it wants to kick that over there.
Hmm.
Ah, maybe we can underline this. Oh, I won't underline it over. I mean, I know what it looks like, but
I think it would be easier to follow if you had like on one line, proposed budget minus proposed revenue equals
Mm,
total raise through taxation. And then like below it, you could actually use the numbers if there's not enough room.
Oh, I see, so do it, and then the number, if you can't do it.
That minus is really small. Oh, it's not in there.
yeah.
No, so you need to get all on the line. So I would do it word wise and then number wise
I
below it.
agree.
This thing is just, it's probably gonna jump to the other page. No, okay.
It's okay.
Really hard without a mouse.
I think you can get rid of the cost minus income. in
Oh yeah, because we
parentheses.
just answered the same.
Right. And then maybe put a space after the emergency management line, because you.
I got room now.
Yep.
Well, until I add something up here. I'll have to reformat it once I get everything in. Is that what you're talking about, Peter? Minus factors and
Yeah.
space?
That looks nice.
And then I'll just do something similar to that under those categories.
Exactly,
That gives me something to go by.
right, same language, same,
And then I struck through from Article 6.
so just to clarify on Article 8. Of the. So when this is printed, you're going to change the 2 to. It says 2 parentheses 1 remaining payments. How do we?
Oh, I didn't, yep. I updated the numbers, but not the words. It's an easy fix. Just want to make sure you
And
were
then-
reading it.
You know I do.
The fire rescue building, I can put it matures in 2034, but I left that out.
So for the, like, the excavator, 1 remaining payment, so I will
Payment.
payment, that means,
This is the last year to be raised.
okay. But we don't just make 1 payment, right?
No, we
pay
do.
monthly.
We pay one annual payment.
Oh, okay,
So when we
Okay.
take out a 5-year loan on most things, it's 5 payments.
Okay.
Unless we pay it early. The
okay,
fire rescue building is the only exception to that one. That one we do pay monthly.
okay. So this is the last year for the cat.
Correct.
Um,
Folder, I forgot. Very nice.
So then to page 3, to just center that line, approval of local revenues reduces the amount to be taxed. Page 3,
Page 3. Yeah, you want me to center that?
center it and make it bigger and highlighted.
We don't have colored printers here, so we have to make do with black and white
You can go through one by one.
and highlight every one of them.
Remember when we had that envelope stuffing party? A lot
You want me to like put it all in caps or just increase the size?
Just a little bigger. Is that up 1? Did you go up 1?
No, that's up 3.
Maybe go up 2? Be smaller. It should be,
Yeah, she went 2 up from what it originally was, I
Oh, 2 up. So, you want me to do 13 because it's at 11?
think.
or what's 12? I don't know, or bold, make it
13.
bold. Keep it where it was and make it bold.
You don't think it'll blend with these ones? Because these are all bold.
I think that looks fine.
This is what it would look like bold.
What if that's 13 bold, right? What if you do 11 bold?
That is 11 bold. Wait,
11
Here.
bold would look just like this, except it won't be in italics.
I think we're overthinking it.
I think we are too. I think it looks good like that. Sticks
Okay.
out more. Let me just do the other one.
You perhaps don't need as much space between what you just did and then the list, if you want to save yourself some space.
I'm not even gonna mess with that yet
Oh.
until everything's final.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tear my hair
Oh,
out.
no,
trying
then that's fine. Then that's fine. I thought you were gonna do it tonight.
Formatting, I can get at.
Okay,
Mm.
it's just
It's the
language.
substance of what
Okay.
you guys are.
Yeah.
So just like last year, I left Article 15 at 4%.
Mhm.
The state allows 7.5, but if we go over 4%, we have to pay interest on overpayments, so.
Nope.
I assumed, I don't wanna assume. Is that correct? And then all these questions are the same as last year, just for this fiscal year. Did alter,
And there,
Article 23 is different now. It's right from MMA. They had a couple of examples, but because they had changed those statutes, I had to incorporate the new language,
right,
which asks for you to sell it as required by 943C.
Does it matter if November 15th is a Saturday?
It's always been the 15th, even if it fell on a weekend. If we start changing it, and that's not to say that the voters couldn't vote no, and then we'd have to put it up to the voters, but then it gets confusing with the mortgage companies because we're constantly moving the date.
no, it's just, if it did matter. Thank you for note.
It's sort of like how they tell you you have to have absentee ballots out 30 days before the election, but guess what? 30 days prior is always a Sunday. I don't know many town houses that are open on Sundays, but that's the law. So yeah, that one got changed for that reason, because of the changes in statute. Article 24 is written the way it's required to be for any ordinance. I highlighted the bottom just to see if I need to rewrite that, or if you have something else you want to put in there. I kind of put it in there pretty quick, so. which obviously the ordinance isn't attached to this one, but it will be when it's
Right.
posted.
It's the same, it's clear.
What else?
Don't know if it would be helpful as much as the ordinance will be attached. Many people will just rely on this information, but a line in here is, this isn't something that the town of Buckfield came up with. This is something that many towns, municipalities do. Maybe after that first sentence, something about, I don't know if it, I don't know the number of towns, but could it be called common practice? Is this now common practice or
It's becoming common practice,
becoming common practice in many,
becoming more common.
Mhm.
right? Or a practice that is in place in many
Mhm.
towns and municipalities.
I mean, in some towns, it's been in place for over 30 years.
Yeah.
It's not like it's anything new, it's just
Mm.
more fire departments are starting to,
Mhm.
um, utilize it because the costs are soaring and taxpayers are looking to reduce budgets, and
Mm.
the only way to reduce costs is to generate
Right.
returns or recoup some of that.
For those people who aren't
Yeah.
familiar and haven't attended the meetings to know that, oh,
Mhm.
okay, this is,
I think it's helpful context.
those were the words I was looking for. Thank you.
Snowmobile Club one is in there every year. That's
Mhm.
unchanged.
Yep.
I believe I reworded Article 25. I looked at other towns and what their warrant articles were, and ours was a little confusing, I guess. So I landed on this one, which says the same thing. It's just allowing you to accept.
Yep.
What you are typically granted each town meeting, but with more specific clarity on
Mhm.
that you can use it to spend the gifts for the purposes intended as allowed by law and all that good stuff.
I think that looks great.
All right, Article 27. So we didn't do this last year, but I highly recommend it as the treasurer and the town manager, because oftentimes, well, basically a lot of towns are finding right now that if you're not waiving certain foreclosures, the town is getting buried in real estate that it's costing the town more to get rid of it, even through the new statutes, than it is to than it's worth. So what MMA has recommended is to have this in here so that if you have that property that say may only bring in $5,000, I use it specifically for like mobile homes in a trailer park.
Mhm.
If you take that trailer, or if you foreclose on that trailer, it's now our problem, right? Yeah, we could sell it, but what are you going to get for it? So by the time you've got all the costs associated into it, and now we're required to list it with a real estate broker, we're in the hole. So they sort of felt that it makes more sense to let it just kind of ride and hope that at some point it gets taken care of. That's just one example. But houses, if there's a house that's in just a really, really bad condition that the town's not going to recoup the taxes that are behind, it doesn't make sense for the town to foreclose on it.
Mm.
If that property ever is sold, whether it's the house or just the land, those liens would have to be paid off before that transfer could happen. So you're kind of banking on the fact that in the future, at some point, something will happen and that property will be transferred to somebody, which would result in those liens having to be paid off, as opposed to having to juggle with the realtors. And I'm not saying it's for every property, but it was highly advised that this was on there.
Yeah.
So this just allows for that to happen after discussion. It
Right.
doesn't mean we will do it,
Right,
But
but it
just
gives you the option.
option,
So like
because you can't anticipate everything.
prior to those 30 to 45-day letters that go out, which I just sent for last year, I basically print a property card for all the properties that were on that list and basically bring it to you and have you review them and make a recommendation on, does this make sense for the town, or will this cost the town money? Which we're already talking about taxes that aren't being paid. The last thing we want to do is cost the town more money in trying to recoup those taxes. So I'll have to be a little bit, I'll have to bring that stuff to you before I send those letters out, just so that determination can be made, because then on top of that, you gotta file a waiver of foreclosure with the registry of deeds if you do decide to waive one. It has to be recorded. So it's more work that needs to be done, but I think the more work is, the lien stays in effect, right? It just doesn't foreclose. So the lien is still there. Our interest is still in the property. It's not like we're just saying, oh, we didn't get paid. It is what it is. That's not what it's saying. It's just saying we're not going to take possession of it or ownership of it.
So like every time one of these instances would come up, it would be brought to the select board? Are there like a certain criteria for if it gets brought to the select board, or if it?
So I'd ask all I can do is make a recommendation to you.
Sure.
So if I look through the property list and I'm like, this is gonna cost us X amount of dollars to dispose of, I highly recommend that you don't, you would discuss it or whatever. I think it would make sense that instead of like, if I send those letters out 45 days, maybe the month prior, I come to you with a list of these are the ones that haven't been paid yet. These are the properties that they are. And then you can ask me for my recommendations based off of that. And you can look at every individual one, or I can just bring you the ones that I think will cost the town money. It's all your direction, really, because you're the one with the authority to do it, not me. They're authorizing the treasurer with your approval. So I can't do it on my own.
Gotcha.
And MMA is encouraging us to do this. That leads me to believe that some town somewhere really wish they'd been able to.
Yeah.
So having options is always a good thing, knowing that it will be discussed
For sure.
prior to.
These statutes, they were established after a Supreme Court ruling, which, they deemed it unconstitutional the way that they were doing it. So they were getting ahead of it, which is good. Unfortunately, I think it's gotten so convoluted that it's really hard for small towns, like towns that are smaller than Buckfield. I can't imagine, because you also, if you want to recoup the cost, any administrative aspects, any costs for maintaining the property, all that stuff, all that has to be clearly tracked, so that before we give the proceeds, the leftover money back to the previous owner, you're making sure that the town is reimbursed for everything that they did. Well, if it costs us $10,000 to get rid of a house and maintain it, and there's only, $10,000 in sale, or less than that, for something that's just the building and not the land, you're basically out of it. You can't recoup that money. So I think it makes sense to be in there. We'll just have to figure it. This is all new for everybody, really.
Sure.
This statute, or not statute, this type of warrant article's been out there for a while. We've just never used it because that was the only way to recoup the money. But it's put towns in a bad place as far as how far are you willing to go.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I definitely trust MMA's judgment.
And Article 29. That's really the only. I'm trying to sum up an 8-page will in one paragraph while still trying to hit the points.
Yeah, I think that sums that up nicely. I'm wondering, is it appropriate or in our best interest to have the full document available for people to read if they would like more detail than what you give here?
I'd have to talk to the state. I don't know. I'm not sure where that lands.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Back here when it said ordinance is attached,
Hmm.
the ordinance will be attached to,
The warrant when it's posted. So it'll be like the warrant will be there with the,
Mm.
so by law, if it's less than 10 pages, it has to be attached to the warrant. If it's more than 10 pages, there has to be a note that says it's available for review at the town office.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if, so would this entire Article 29 as written be what's on the ballot?
Yes, and the reason it's like that is because it needs to be very specific as to what are they accepting, when is it to be used for, and it needs to be maintained into perpetuity. It cannot be
Okay.
sold.
So we have to have all of this in there.
And I think that last sentence is important.
Mhm.
As Judy said.
Yeah, I think maybe that's why you put it in there.
Now, if all of this information needs to be in there, then you've done that as succinctly as possible.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just supposed to be in a way that like 20 years from now, there's a, whole new select board, whole new town manager, and they're like, oh, we want to get rid of that property. Like, they got to go back to the records and be like, no, this is what the town accepted.
Yeah.
This is what you have to honor.
Mhm. Yep.
But that was the shortest I could get it.
Yeah,
No, if this
yeah, I think
information
that was
needs to be there, that's great. So I would like to amend my motion to say that we will approve the draft warrant of the 2025-2026 municipal budget with amendments made today at this meeting.
I will continue to the second.
Second.
Azalea, aye.
Peter, I.
Sandra, I. What? Great.
Mhm.
So it's cleaner now. It's laid out the way it flows the way it's supposed to. Our last one that was approved had sections that should have been part of other sections that were not in that section. They weren't even close to that section. So I cleaned that up. I cleaned up obviously former employees and tried to modernize anything that I needed to and correct errors. Most of the substance of it was valid and correct. It was just a matter of cleaning it up.
Formal.
And in the copy I made public, obviously I blacked out phone numbers because I don't feel like personal cell phone numbers for town employees or select board members should be handed out freely. So on the actual document that goes to Oxford, obviously those numbers are in there for emergency purposes, but I did black them out for the sake of this.
But it's a big read, but it makes sense. As somebody who doesn't necessarily understand all of this, everything that goes into managing an emergency, I was really able to follow this document.
And I think,
Thank you for that.
I think some people might think that this needs to be more in depth, but I think it needs to be a basic plan on how, it shouldn't bury you in
Right, if you need to
information.
know.
So,
It should be a guide, essentially.
somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience should be able to pick this up and go, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Exactly, but it also tells you where to go to get further information, so.
Mhm.
You know, it has a section that outlines, what the heck's it called? Continuity after, you know, an emergency, like what happens if the town office burns down? You know, it kind of addresses like what would be needed or what would be done. Which was all included in the older one. This was a little bit, there's a little bit more information into it, but, you know, it addresses areas that, the plan identifies what activities need to be accomplished in order to have a successful coup. Not all of the mitigation activities have been implemented. So it discusses that the town has not yet implemented like scanning hard copies into digital format. So like the archive stuff, the old books, like we were talking about the historical preservation, like that's something that, you know, we're aware of and we're working on. And then backup digital files and store off site. Obviously that's something that we discussed as well. So, and those are all things that are being implemented. So I will stay on top of this each year. And then as people leave or things change or phone numbers change, I'll update it. And then we'll get back on track to I'll bring it to you once a year for you to review and then sign off on. But the town has not signed off on one since 2019, I think was the last version.
And I saw the page.
Yep.
Within this document that allows us
So
to record that we do that.
So page 5 would be your initial approval. That would nullify any of the prior ones. This would become the operations plan. And then the following year, which is why it goes 26, 27, that's where, you know, I'll have you all review it. And then if you're good with it, not much has changed. I'll make notes of anything that's changed and sign off on it. And then we'll continue to do it for the 5-year period. And if nothing needs to be changed in 5 years, we'll just continue it on. But
Clarifying question, so page 47, I was looking at this, the disaster volunteer survey form. Is this something? I don't know, sent out, made available for people ahead of time to, so it's on file? Folks who are willing to volunteer and these are what their skills are, or is this something that is used when the emergency happens?
this is a form that's used like, you know, in a natural disaster situation where you need different people. This is what you'd hand out. I mean, we could do that. I actually don't think this form was actually in our prior
It may have been, but I
emergency plan. It didn't look like this, and there wasn't. There's more of a breakdown for volunteer stuff here. I mean, it's obvious. It's something that could be passed around for people that wanted to provide that information, just to have it on record. I think this is geared more towards like it's chaos and we need people. Here, fill this form out. Tell us what you can do, and let's see if we have a spot for you.
Most people are actually there, whereas if they filled it out ahead of time, they might not.
We might not be able to get a hold of them.
Right.
But at some point, maybe putting out there, if you're a community member with a skill set that could be helpful in a mass emergency situation, just looking at some of these, your doctor, your ham radio operator, I'm sure that we have several people in town with that skill. It would be great to know who they are.
There was another thing in here under local contractors and suppliers. So obviously right now, all I have on here is Lowell Lumber and Tilton's Market. But if there's contractors and stuff that want to be listed on this as well, or if people have contractors that I should put in here, or any other business that's local that I don't know about.
And this would be for the purposes of
Having somebody to
material
call it,
supplies
or
in an emergency.
we need a bulldozer, who's got a bulldozer or another excavator or whatever. So, you know, those people, like Chris Hayward's a good example, you know, he's Rick Jaselskis, you know, that information could be included in here in case there was an emergency. Hey, we need something, we need this. Reach out to so-and-so, which I can update throughout the year too for this sheet, but I just started with the two basic businesses that were in town that, you know, everybody thinks of.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to review, the only other thing I'm going to review with Adam is just hose lengths, because on the fire department breakdown of what they have, I think that's outdated, but I'll get that updated as well, because I know we've got new hose. And then I just got to get some information on truck 2, as far as I don't remember what size pump that is or how many gallons it is. So I got to ask him, and then I'll plug that in as well. But all in all, the information will still be the same. It'll just be more current information than what's already in here.
Yeah, I don't doubt that disaster volunteer survey form would be helpful in an emergency, but I do think it would be prudent for us to kind of collect that information ahead of time too. Maybe not necessarily this form, but looking, for that sort of thing, and then just a little blurb about how, we might give you a call if we need you. This is not a binding document. This is
Right.
just
Like, I don't think
at one
the
point.
doc where they need to sign the waiver.
Right. Yeah.
Just collecting the
Yeah.
The contact list.
contact list.
Yeah.
So if, what information in here can you just change as needed? Like, do you have the leeway to do that? Names, numbers, location, trucks?
So, I mean, as the emergency management director, I can go in and make those changes and notate it, on obviously that sheet, if I make changes like that,
Okay,
it would fill up pretty quick, but I mean, obviously I don't want to not make the changes because somebody changed their phone number and we haven't, brought it to the select board for approval, but I would, if you give me the leeway to update phone numbers as they come along or add in businesses or, resources, I feel like that would fall under the purview of the EM director, just to keep that stuff current.
Yeah.
So,
which makes
And-
sense to do that. So you're not changing any of the process.
Mhm.
right, I'm not
You're
changing the
just changing-
policies, I'm changing,
Exactly.
resource information, basically.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
But like you just
The
said
nuts
with
and
the
bolts
hose
stay the
lanes,
same.
Mhm.
if new hoses are
Right.
purchased or the Red Cross changes its phone number,
Mhm.
you ought to be able to just go in there and.
Especially, if like something happened tomorrow and we needed, 2,000 feet of whatever, and we only listed 1,500, I don't wanna call and, request resources from Oxford County or, from another department if we've got it sitting on the ground. So
Mhm.
I just wanna make sure it's all current.
Yep.
But yes, no, as far as like, the scope and practice and concept of operations of different, types of disasters, none of that's getting changed.
Mhm.
And if it did get changed, that would be part of the annual process that I would meet with you. And of course, we all know we can write the biggest plan we want at the end of the day. Once something happens. But you try to be prepared.
Mhm.
So I move that we adopt the town of Buckfield Emergency Operations Plan. As written. Do we need to make a caveat anywhere that says that the emergency management director, so what's the title?
You just said it right.
Emergency management director has license to change
Resource information.
resource information.
You just did. You made it part of the motion.
Okay.
Wait, as long as he agrees to it.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Celia, I.
Peter, on?
Sandra, I. Master.
I'm gonna just put this over near you so
Yeah.
that when we sign here. So, well, you guys, just marked one of your things off your to-do list, so
Yes, I was thinking. You bring that up later.
I'm just gonna draw a line right through
We're
that.
down to 5 now, correct?
Well, the reason these were at the center of my attention were because you'll recall a few meetings ago, it was brought up by the public about those items.
Yes.
So this I worked on last year when I was doing the budget. And when I did it, and I looked at the bottom line, I went, there's no way.
Mhm.
Because obviously we have older equipment that if you look at the expected life cycle, we've already gone through the majority of it. So
Mhm.
we're already behind on planning for this stuff. it would be impossible for us to budget for everything that we need replaced. And I think that, putting this out in front of people so that they can see it, which I don't have it on the screen, but if I did, it's available in the packet, Neil, if you have looked at it on our website. You know, year one, if we budgeted everything that we need to replace and plan for it, you know, however many years out, some of these are 1 year, some of these are 5 years, some of these are 30 years. First year, we'd have to raise close to over $1 million. The following year, we'd have to raise $500,000, and it would stay right around that until about year 5. Then it would kind of start to settle down to $250,000, but that's without budgeting for new changes as they happen. So in some areas, I think that what this board and future boards and administration should focus on is, as you replace something, like we'll say, and we didn't budget into this year, so we'll have to look at this next year when we do the budget and see if it's feasible. But like we replaced, or we bought that that 1-ton pickup for Public Works. As soon as you buy it, you start setting aside money. What's the expected life? Is it 15 years? Okay, so break down the expected cost, break it down by 15 years. How much do you want to have when it's time to do it? Half of it, quarter of it? What, you know, figure that number out and then work that into the budgets. Fire trucks and ambulances, that needs to start on year one. Year one, it's okay, we spent X. What do we anticipate it's going to be? 10 years is what we're looking at. And then break that down for ambulances. And then fire trucks, you got like 25 years, 20 to 25 years. All right, so what's this going to look like breaking it down? That's the only way you're going to be able to implement something like this. And if we're unable to implement it that way, then we need to just accept that and realize that we need to borrow when we need things. Maybe we just set aside that down payment, or, you know, something that can reduce our overall costs in the end. But I just, making this visual so you all can see it, I just don't see how you could anticipate for stuff like that. I mean, if you look at the municipal center alone, right? I got news from Susan Collins' office. We did not get the funding for that. So I still got to come up with, what was it, 370? We got to come up with roughly $296,000 for the remaining windows. Obviously, we got the first batch.
Not right now.
Not right now, but
Anybody that's listening, that is not part of the.
no, but I'm just being real here. Right. You know, we got a quote, $370,000 for 77 windows. These windows are massive. We discussed shrinking them down. It's not any cheaper from, you know, what, you know, just the construction materials associated for doing it. And there's what, 77 of them. So that, you know, they're expensive windows. The windows that are here are 98, 97 years old. I don't know, what year was this building built? 1928. So 97 years old. They're the same windows that were here 97 years ago. So we're not doing it today, but the reality is we have to figure out how to replace 77 windows sooner rather than later, because, well, these ones serve their purpose and we're that many years in. So we got the grant for 12, if we can get them for the same price that we were originally quoted for the town office. That has to go to RFP. That's just the federal requirements because of how the funding came in. There is a share for that, so it'll cost the town roughly $15,000 to do those 12 windows. The overall project will be about $67,000. That'll take care of the town office's windows. It doesn't take care of any others. So our plan stopped when that money wasn't approved, and now we're going to have to look at other options, which I'm not saying grant money's not out there, but it's just something to expect. Roof replacement, great news. We just replaced it. We paid $56,000. If it's good for 40 years and we save $1,750 a year and hope that it's only $70,000 in 40 years, we'll be most of the way there. But is the building going to be here in 40 years? I don't know. But that's what I mean. It's a lot easier to save $1,750 for a project than it is to save $49,000 a year.
So if we look at best practice, do we set that money aside?
Well, we did. I put $10,000 in the municipal center reserve, so 1,750 of it is that.
Okay,
As well as, the heating system, that's $2,500 over the course of, I put 25 years, you probably get 30 years out of that, but to be on the safe side, I put 25. So I mean, you've got 30, close to 4,000, over $4,000, so 4,250 for heating and roof replacement. And I put 10 grand aside, so the other 5,000, whatever, can go towards other projects we have, but at least we know, like, if we consistently did that every year for that and kept it that way,
mhm,
we could essentially make sure that we have money for the roof replacement and heating system
Mhm.
when it's time to do that. Exterior repairs and painting, I put $30,000. I have no idea. I haven't gotten a quote. It was $14,000 when they did it in 2006.
Mm,
Some of these numbers I use the inflation or the
yeah.
I'm talking about, yeah, the inflation calculator. But some of them you can't gauge, right? So like engine one, not engine one, the truck two, the Quint we just bought, right? I put 25 years on it. So by 2048, it'd be time to start thinking about either, which at that point, it'll be a very old truck because the truck itself is an 05.
Mm.
So in order to replace that today, I had 350,000 because we refurbished it, but
Yeah.
that truck would cost 1.2 million.
Mm.
So I mean, even looking at that, $15,000 a year over the course of 24 years, still only going to be a fraction of what it will cost to replace that or buy a used
Yeah.
decent one. So in my town manager's report, I talked about this and I said, this is a living document. Obviously it needs to be adjusted every year. Different factors play into it, whether it's inflation or maybe the town no longer needs certain trucks or whatever. So you can phase that one out. But this is what I had put together last year and this is what I've updated. I just wanted to show that we've got something there.
mhm.
It's just, we kind of got to prioritize what we're saving for.
Mhm.
Because like the ambulance, right? We're at day 0. I'm trying to get back in touch with Sugarloaf, but that's going to need to be done in the next 24 months. Preferably not 24 months, but we have half that money saved up, so at least we're halfway there.
Mm.
We just got to do a better job of that. Maybe not have a capital improvement plan per se that looks like this, because the town has been approached with something like this in the past and it got shot down real quick. So if anything, you at least have a visual of, whatever
Mhm.
to go by.
I think it's important to have a document for people to be able.
Yeah.
To look at. Sounds like a great proposal, Cameron, that we have to start somewhere.
Mhm.
And if we start baby steps,
Mhm.
then we put some money aside. Or we're asking the town to put that money aside in this budget,
Mm.
looking, roof, heating. And is there money in there towards rebound?
No,
No.
No.
I didn't put any money in there.
Okay.
But if you averaged and figured it would take every 10 years and it was going to cost you $20,000, or it was going to cost you $200,000, 20 grand a year for 10 years. It's not a small number to most, you know what I mean? But we found ourselves in that boat where we were paying, what did we do? It was 150-ish that we were paying for 3 years. We paid $45,000. Obviously things are going to be more expensive 10 years. It's not.
Yeah.
Numbers stress me out. Especially when you're looking at something that shows $4.2 million worth of assets or estimated cost to replace, which isn't correct, because if that 350,000 was actually at the 1.2 million, we'd be over $5 million. And then trying to figure out how to save for that. There's things in here that we just, the municipal center stuff's just wear items, really. Parking lot, right? Parking lot's not gonna be good forever. You know, the station's still relatively new.
Yeah.
10 years old, but 10 years in, I know my house is starting to have things that I need to maintain. You know, we kind of got the good years behind us, you know, so now there's those freaking overhead doors in that building.
Mm.
They're in good shape, but I'm always fixing them. You know, the station roof, it's a shingled roof. It's good for 25 years. So by 2029, really, if you were staying on top of it, it may be time to look at replacing that roof. And it's not a small roof, but could be good for 30 years, could be good for 40 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is. And then in your packet, if you look, it actually breaks down. We'll get there. Hold on. Yep.
Thank you for giving us this enlarged version. This
Mhm.
You
is
could read the
probably
whole-
online, so I keep, right, zooming in and. I think it's important that we as a board keep this document handy
Mhm.
and going forward.
Mhm.
So
Right.
if you started, if you were to implement a plan like this and you were to fund it at 25% and you started it this year, you'd have to allocate $253,000 worth of reserves. Year two would be 123, and then it would progressively go down. But then again, that's not taking into account,
Yeah.
you know, you replace one and then you start doing it all over again. So,
Mhm.
I mean, if you started out brand new and did it all, it could probably be, you know, $150,000 a year if it was done correctly. Unfortunately, we started out with trucks that are already
Mhm.
how many years old? Public Works. So our oldest truck is 20 years old.
Mm. Is there a place that this is going to live on the town website if people want to look at it in the future when the current packet is no longer up on the website?
You can probably
Probably featured on the website, I should say.
create a Dropbox folder where it can be edited and updated,
Yes.
sort of like what I did with the meeting thing. I think that works out better because I used to have to log in and update the packet. Now I can just drop all the packets, and if somebody wants to go back and look at an old one, they can,
Mhm.
and I don't have to keep uploading stuff.
That was a good idea.
Ooh, Stacy's in the meeting room. How long has she been sitting there? So yeah, there you have it. It's been put on paper, and all I can say is we'll just focus on, as we get newer stuff, prioritizing planning this out further ahead than waiting until we're 3 years out or 2 years out or
Mm.
negative 4 years out.
Mhm.
And then on the bottom of that, you notice I added the old church on the hill. I use the engineering study numbers because I never got any like actual documentation from what was discussed after that.
Mhm.
So that's the best information I have to go by. But again, that's 635,000 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's better than not having any number in there. So I
Right.
mean, even if you put $63,500 aside, it would be what, 10 years?
Mhm.
Come up with enough to do the steeple.
Yeah.
Actually, I think by year 4, you'd be able to do the steeple if
Mhm.
the prices stayed the same. And then the rest would be staging and
Yeah. That survey was historic kind of restoration standards, which aren't necessary because the building doesn't receive federal funding, but I definitely agree that we're not, you know, I think Judy mentioned, a couple years ago, a guy came and said that it could be done for, $25,000 with some volunteer work. I don't think that is in the realm of
No.
possibility. I think that might have been far-fetched then, but the cost of materials right now, I don't think that's. I've reached out to someone. I'm hoping to get someone with experience to ballpark it again for us with some current numbers. But TBD on that.
I mean, looking at the condition of the posts and stuff in the steeple, and looking at what they did in 1985.
Yeah.
I think the only real option for the steeple itself
come down.
is for it to come down
Mhm.
and then
Either be restored or like.
I don't even
patched.
know if it could be restored, maybe rebuilt
Right.
and then
yeah, that's
reset.
what I mean.
But I just don't see how they'd be able to fix it with it sitting there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can do anything with enough money, but I think the cheapest alternative
Yeah.
would be to do it on the ground as
Mhm.
opposed to having staging set up for 3 years while they, I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
Mhm.
But I did include that in there because that is a liability of the town that we need to have.
Yep.
Openly punishing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Business, Senator.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Anything you want to highlight in your report?
I'll just go over it. So we had hit on it earlier. Actually, I don't know if that was before the meeting started. You had asked me a question, Sandra. My hope is that everything will be finalized with the budget and the draft warrant becoming the final warrant signed by no later than April 11th. That's the date that the nomination papers are due, and I need to make sure that Alyssa has a day or two to get that loaded into the system so we can order absentee ballot. I spent most of this month working on different projects, which you've just discussed 2 of them, the emergency management, the operations plan, as well as the capital improvement plan. The town's assessor, Manny, and I've discussed, have been working with US Land Grid to digitize our tax maps. That project's almost over with. So here in the next month or so, I anticipate that we'll have brand new tax maps. That'll be the first update since 2021. So one more project behind us. Solid waste, every year, I think you all get a copy. I think I forwarded it both to you. I have to submit an annual solid waste report. I've completed that, and then this happens to also be the biennial report due date. So I had to do the biennial recycling progress report as well. They both were due by April 30th. I submitted them last week, so I'm well ahead of schedule on those. And just a side note, when I first got here, the town was 4 years behind on solid waste reports. We've been current ever since I've been here. That was a pain. Public Works, obviously starting to warm up, frost is starting to come out of the roads. We've posted all the roads. Yes, the roads are rough. The frost heaves are horrendous. I definitely recommend that, encourage the traveling public to drive slowly. The crews spent a couple days cold patching some of the worst potholes. We are aware that there's so many throughout town that need to get done, and they'll get to them as soon as they can. In some instances, we will continue to fill it with stone dust until we're out of the clear with the rain and the snow. I want to thank the Mechanic Falls Public Works crew. They came out to Buckfield when we had a really bad backed up culvert on Old Sumner Road. It was icing the entire road over. We didn't have the equipment to get it unclogged. They brought their equipment. They were able to get it freed up. Once it was freed up, we discovered the culvert itself was compromised. So Preston and the crew will be working on replacing that tomorrow, and we shouldn't have any more issues with that. I've been in touch with Spencer Group Paving. I've been informed that we're the first project on their list for the spring paving. So the start date's obviously dependent on the weather, but if spring's over early, hoping end of April, early May, they'll be able to get that started. North Buckfield Road and Paris Hill Road will be able to get completed. So all in all, I would love to see those projects completed so we can move on to the next one in our next fiscal year budget.
Do you know if spring isn't here early, we can roughly estimate that to be, say it can't be attended late April, early May? When do they usually?
Well, he's saying end of April. So if everything dries out, things get good, you could probably start at the end of April. However, if we have a wet, like last year, I think we get dumped with like a foot of snow at the end of April.
Yeah, no, like most of our snow came in
Yeah.
April.
That'll push it out, to May. But no matter what, this project will be done
Yeah, right.
by July 1st
Yeah.
or June 30th. Because obviously it can be encumbered, but it needs to be done for the summer.
Mhm.
And he knows, or they know that
Yeah.
obviously we're eager. It's been 6 months since it was supposed to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I acknowledge the fact that they're relying on a subcontractor as well, so
Mhm.
I'm understanding of that, but I think the residents have withstood those
Oh, yeah.
cross culverts, and we've had to fill them in so many times that we're done filling them in too. So it'll be good once it's all completed. But yeah, that's all I got.
Can I interject with a community question?
Sure.
Back to the public works budget, Cam, could you explain where local excise tax from vehicle registrations goes into in the budget?
It's received as excise tax, and it offsets the overall budget. So your excise tax essentially would offset your roads maintenance budget.
And then, do I remember correctly that we usually make like a little over, is it 400,000 in excise tax, or do I have that?
No, so between local roads assistance, which we get from the state, it's roughly $50,000. Gotcha. Which then we'll have to document like what we use that money for. So typically it's our paving budget. So we get that, and then excise tax fluctuates between 350, 380. So it's between excise tax and our local roads assistance, we just about make up for what we pay in paving.
Okay.
We pay a little bit more than what we bring in, but,
right.
For the most part, it covers the majority of the paving.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any further discussion? No? All right, all those in favor, Bob, aye.
Celia, aye.
Peter, I.
Sandra, I.
Thank you. And the total on those warrants was $64,552.36. Approval of the minutes from the March 11th, 2025 Select Board meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes from the March 11th, 2025 Select Board meeting.
I'll second.
With one
With
correction,
one correction,
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
typo.
number 9
Number 9.
should be 4.
Sneaky, sneaky.
Oh. It was like 10:30 when I wrote these.
That was the only,
Good catch.
Peter gets that one.
See, I do read.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, Bob, aye.
Celia, aye.
Peter, I.
Sandra, I.
Thank you. Tax acquired properties. Realtor Services RFP review.
So we hit on the changes in statute. I think I included in the package. And it talks about this notification process. We send a letter to them, so we're gonna list your property. And then we have to make an attempt to have it listed by a broker. So some towns are sending out an RFP for, proposals from real estate brokers to do that service for them. And that's why I borrowed this and modified it to us, I think, from Lisbon. But I wanted to discuss it because I think last year there was 7. So some of the tax acquired properties, the owners or the former owners are making good faith efforts. They're coming in, making regular payments. Some of them haven't made a payment in over 2 years. So obviously we can't continue to sit on this.
Right.
So if a good faith effort isn't being made, we're gonna have to get rid of those. Because I mean, you're either the previous owner buys it back or it's sold to somebody else that'll turn it back into a taxable property. Because all it's doing right now is it's adding balance to the tax rolls, but no money's coming in from it, and we can't continue to do it in perpetuity. So if you review the proposal, yes, I know there's a 1 with nothing next to it, and then it jumps right to 2. I've already noted it, so that needs to be changed. But if you're okay with it, I'll put it out there and publish it, and then have brokers submit proposals. Just so that when we do make that, or you make that decision to move forward on some of these, that we have
People in place.
people in place to do it.
So exactly what is it we need to approve?
You know, page 95 of your packet.
Right.
I'm still trying to look for it.
What are the words I need to approve?
From my packet, it's page 127.
Oh, right here. So yeah, there's a letter on the front. The actual proposal itself is Town of Buckfield, Maine, request for proposal Realtor Services. And then it gives an invitation to bid with scope of services, your regular award or rejection of bid, minimum qualifications. It does say commercial, just because you don't know if you're ever gonna have, we don't currently have any commercial properties.
Yeah.
But you could strike that if you don't need it. But if you ever did,
Yeah,
So-
just in case.
I move to approve the request for proposal for realtor services. With Cameron's amendment of the number one.
I caught it after I scanned it. I wasn't scanning 100 pages again.
I'll second that motion. Sorry, I'll sleep.
Figured I'd give everyone a chance to.
Any further discussion? Nope. Okay, all those in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, aye.
Peter, I.
Sandra, I.
Yeah, but
If you feel like looking at it before you leave, all the current tax acquired properties from last year and
committee resignation, Cheryl Kaufman from the Community Events Committee.
I move that with regret, we accept Cheryl Kaufman's resignation. The Community Events Committee.
I'll second that.
Any
it's been a
further-
while since there's been a battle like that.
Real showdown here at the select board.
I have something, if you'll let me talk.
Yes,
Please.
I do want to apologize to Cheryl because I did not realize that this was dropped off in the box out back. That's why the date says January. I checked it the other day and I hadn't checked it because I didn't have any need to, and so that's on me. So my apologies for not acknowledging this until March.
if anyone will understand, Cheryl.
But I'd just like to recognize, the countless hours,
Mhm.
that she has given to this community, this committee, and all the work that she's done.
Mhm.
She wanted to get the parade back and we had it last year.
Yep.
That was the first time in how many?
Mhm.
5?
Yep, at least since COVID, and it was so nice to see the turnout for that event. It was
Yes.
really incredible.
Yes.
So thank you for being part of that, Cheryl.
All right. All those in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, aye.
Peter, I.
Sandra, I.
Reschedule April 1st, 2025 Select Board meeting.
I will make a motion that we reschedule the April 1st, 2025 select board meeting to occur on April 8th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Only reason we're doing this tonight is because we weren't sure if we officially changed things around, but we had discussed a previous meeting. We're going to be having public hearings on the fire department on the 1st for the fire department billing ordinance, as well as the warrant articles for this upcoming budget year. So public hearings galore on the 1st, and then we'll be right back at it on the 8th with the official select board meeting.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, aye.
Peter, I.
Sandra, I.
Thank you. Other business.
I have two items of new business. The first is several community members have come to me, and I'm aware of other discussions taking place, about people wanting to come together and explore options for our schools, our school system, gathering more information on costs of operation and options on whether or not it would be feasible or a good idea to consider removing ourselves, our local schools from the RSU.
Mhm.
I am in full support of people gathering information. I'm thinking it might be a good idea to put together a committee that could also include folks from Hartford and Sumner. So be one committee of all of the stakeholders of our local schools, rather than several committees, perhaps all doing the same work.
Yep.
So I wanted to put that out there for discussion. I know Neil, who is joining us tonight remotely, that he may have some ideas on how that committee could be formed, or some of the roles on that. I don't know, Neil, if you have anything you want to add or not.
No, I mean, I just, think that it's a wise thing to at least explore the potential to see, I guess the cost of not just what we're paying RSU 10 for both Buckfield, Hartford, and Sumner, and what is actually coming back to the schools in the dollar amount. And if it's lopsided one way or the other, or even, and then, and of course, I'm not sure exactly who to talk to, but figure out if we were on our own, the two costs, I guess. The first cost is to get on our own. And then once we're on our own, then the cost to obviously fund Buckfield, Harvard, Sumner schools kind of back before this all happened, back when it was a sad 39, and see if it's financially, one, feasible, but two, is it in the realm that the towns will save more money? Or is it just going to be more expensive to where it's not worth it? Or even what, even if we were able to do that, then as the three towns, we would tend to have more control over what, not necessarily what we teach the kids, but more like how we organize that and maybe do better for our kids for the future.
Mhm.
So
I
Uh-huh.
think that is something that many, many people can get on board with.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't mind volunteering some time to look into what I can. Of course, I don't know a whole lot about school boards or all the ins and outs, and it's I printed off a couple hundred pages here of budgets from from the last budget, and then this current budget, and there's a lot to it. But if we were able to get some people from the other towns that could meet up and kind of divvy up, getting this information, and just coming up with some numbers. Because I think that if we went to the towns themselves and said, we did all this work, and just for example, let's say it comes out that we can save 20% across the board and still provide for our schools being all by ourselves, I think we might get more people who might be interested in helping. Or we can come back and say, no, we're not going to save any money, so it's kind of pointless. And then everybody knows, but right now, nobody really knows.
So if a committee like this were formed, is that a committee you see yourself volunteering to be a part of?
Yeah, I think we could probably, count me in on that. We're going to need to have at least, probably two per town to be part of the committee. I would think probably even three. I'm not really sure what interest there is out there, but.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, of all the questions I hear floating around the most, this one, keeps coming up and we don't have solid numbers for it at the moment. It's just kind of this abstract idea that I think a large chunk of the community is wanting to explore, whether it be, personally or just see the town explore. So yeah, I absolutely agree. I think this is worth investigating. If we can get, the people who can get their hands on this and
So
help out.
prior to me making a motion, so I can put some language together, what we would need a purpose for this ad hoc committee.
Mhm.
So the purpose would be to research. We want to research the feasibility of
explore educational options for Buckfield, Hartford, and Sumner.
okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that's big, but
that's fine.
that's how I
that we need
interpret it.
to- Okay,
Yeah, because I think if we are gonna, go down this road to where it's feasible, I think that we have to maintain Buckfield, Hartford, and Sumner as one unity in order for it to work. Not just because of the buildings and just the layout of the towns, but that's the way it used to be. And if one town doesn't want to, be part of it, then I think it's all going to fall apart. I think it's going to be all or nothing.
so I'd like to make a motion that we form an ad hoc committee education exploration committee to research options for our local schools.
I'll second that motion.
Further discussion?
So this would be a committee that then we could put out information and let people know from apply at the town office, and this would be open to community members, Buckfield, Hartford, and Sumner. And then those folks could get together and form whatever bylaws they felt would be most appropriate, and that would come back to the select board. And then they could put together their own schedule of meeting, and if they had requests for information, that's something they could reach out for. And if we have those numbers or could get those numbers easily for them, then we could do that. So,
Yeah.
Neil, is that kind of covering what you're hearing that people want?
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll have to see if more people can join, but who are willing to spend the time. But yeah, I mean, because we have to start somewhere, and once we get a base idea of is it feasible financially, then we could bring it back to the towns and see if they want to have us go, have that committee or another committee to go more deeper into the details and the legalities of it.
Yep.
You want me to, depending on how this vote goes, you want me to pass this information on to Hartford and Sumner's town offices as
I was
well?
gonna ask how that has to happen. Do those towns then have to?
I mean, if you approve this, you're approving a committee that's welcome, you're allowing their residents to come here or whatever. I just think that sharing this information with them and letting them know that you did this, and maybe, they can spread the word, or, I want them to feel like they're involved in the process too, if they want to.
Right, I just wanna make sure we're just on process to let them.
So there, I
be
mean,
inclusive.
at the end of the day, no matter what direction this goes, I mean, the way I'm understanding this is just, this is an exploration committee. This is researching the feasibility of it and just seeing that is, what does it look like? If it ever makes it to that next step, there's a whole outline process and statute that would require petitions and
But
voting,
at this stage, we're just
Sure.
helping
understanding.
structure
Gotcha.
a system for people to get together and
Mhm.
gather information.
Okay,
And in doing this, it frees up, they can meet here,
Yeah.
because it's a committee that you guys have created.
Mhm.
Got a specific purpose. And then they have the resources they can to meet and discuss it, and we're offering them support.
okay. Any further discussion? No? All right, all those in favor, Bob, aye.
Delia, aye.
Peter, I.
Sandra, I.
Thank you, Neil. The other,
The other, which may not be a discussion for tonight, but it's, the old church on it.
Mhm.
That if we want a warrant article, asking the community or making any movement on the old church in the hill, we need to have that discussion sooner rather than later.
Mhm.
yes,
Listening to community members, share their concerns and their thoughts. I'm thinking possibly looking at putting together a warrant article asking the community if they would support I'm not even sure how to word this, if it could be set up that we could, for not a whole lot of money, gift or sell the old church on the hill to a person, a group, a foundation, and they agreed
Mhm.
to keep the exterior
Mhm.
looking as it does, so it looks like the old church on the hill. Whether they want to have a retail business inside or turn it into a home or into a studio, that would be up to them. And I asked a few questions, could that be done? And it could be written up in that way. Is it's going to take an enormous amount of money to stabilize that structure. And what people want is for that structure to exist. But it would be a hard sell, I think, to ask the folks in Buckfield to pay this kind of money
Mhm.
to then have a building that we really can't use.
Yeah.
Whereas a family, an individual, a group, they may be able to make use of that building, which when we think back, it was built as a place for people to be in
Mhm.
and to have a purpose, and for it to just sit vacant on that hill,
Mhm.
I think is a disservice to the church. So that's the other,
Mhm.
is that a warrant article we want to put out there asking the permission of the town for us to do it? And if we, as a board, if the town says yes, we give you permission, and we as a board can't find the right fit, then we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
What does everybody else think?
I completely agree with you. I think that building holds a lot of value for our community. What it symbolizes, its history, how long it's been a part of the community. You go in the historical society, you find it on old china that can be found in historical homes here in Buckfield. So seeing the church fall into such disrepair, it doesn't sit right. But I also see how much it costs to, build a home from the ground up right now, let alone to go in and fix something that is structurally, quite unstable. And I don't feel optimistically about if the people of Buckfield would, want to take on that burden to, like you said, repair a building that, is effectively storage for us, and without significant investment, that's all it probably will ever be for us.
And for folks to know, there is no plumbing,
No plumbing, one outlet,
there's no
Some
parking.
mailboxes.
mailbox, yeah.
No parking,
no parking.
no of,
Uh-huh,
kind of.
yeah.
Right, so as it exists, it,
It needs special attention for sure. And, it would be great if it were something our community could afford, but I personally don't believe it is. So I would be very interested in seeing this come before the voters where they can definitively say, yes, this is something I'm interested, or no.
Rather than keep sitting on it and
Yes,
have it get worse
exactly.
and worse and worse.
right, it pains me to think that if we put it off another year,
Hmm.
that something could happen, struck with the high winds or with a storm, and
Yeah.
it would get to the point where no one
Yep.
could repair it.
I think it's a struggle too, because the town's technically dealing with, I mean, that's a really old building, but we're dealing with this building too.
Hmm.
So the cost of two relatively old buildings.
Yep.
This one has a purpose. And I'm not saying the church couldn't have a purpose, but the fact that, like you said, it's a vacant building on a hill that's being used for storage is a disservice to the church,
Hmm.
and to the community. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That we can't just make a bunch of money pop out of nowhere and we can take care of it and it'll be great. But I'm kind of with you. I don't think the community can foot the burden and the bill to get that church back to where it needs to be.
Hmm.
And then if we're just gonna make it
When
vacant,
you get it to that point, you're just
Yeah,
maintaining a building,
right.
and buildings that aren't used
Mhm.
deteriorate
Yeah,
faster.
and then, what's the select board in 20, 30 years? Are they gonna be,
you gotta bulldoze it. You know what I mean?
well,
Like,
yeah, but also, like, if we were to dump the money into it, would they just be looking at what we are now, where it then went unused for so long and unattended that
Mhm.
we're basically back to where we are now? Because, yeah, there already, has been in the past, refurbishment efforts.
1985, 40 years ago, they're having this discussion. They did
Right,
it, but
Right, so, yeah. It's a tough question, but I feel uncomfortable just, the 4 or 5 of us making it. I want
Oh, no,
the-
that's a town decision.
yeah, it's a
want-
town decision.
But if we have to put something
Right.
we have to put it
out there for
put it
them
out.
to. To make a decision.
Mhm. Yeah.
And whatever it is that the town wants, we can get. Fine, but we need to the town needs to do something.
Mhm.
I don't think there's many more years that you can put this off.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Do we already have a motion on the table?
I think it was just a discussion, is what she was.
I mean,
So what I'm thinking is, who do you need to talk to figure out what the language would have to be to include this in the warrant articles?
I mean, I'd probably have to reach out to the town's attorney because it's a specific item for the town. I mean, I could get some input from MMA. But obviously, the goal would be to get it taken care of before the first.
hmm,
I'm not saying it's impossible. I can definitely start pursuing it tomorrow. If you make a motion,
It needs to be done, but yes, we.
I just don't want to pull something. Yeah, I just don't want to write something and hope that it's good enough. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
want to kind of write something, send it to the attorney, be like, hey,
Mhm.
do you think this will pass?
I mean, I can make a motion, but I don't know if we need to make a motion to ask you to.
To pursue
Draft
that, to
something
draft
and-
that.
Right. So if. would you please draft something that then we can. But to backtrack, and I wasn't thinking this earlier when we moved the meeting. If this is something you need us to take action on the first,
Well, so you're having a public hearing prior to your meeting or the town meeting on what we're gonna be voting on. So it would be ideal that every item that was gonna be discussed it should be on that warrant. I would even test it a step further and say that you should probably hold a second public hearing once you've finalized it, even if it's after absentee ballots are up, just to be perfectly, these are the ballot questions, or these are the warrant articles, and know that nobody could contest that it wasn't held. But ideally, it would be available on the first. As far as taking action, you wouldn't be approving the warrant until the 8th anyways.
so I would
So I have
need to make a motion for you to add a warrant article to the draft that will be discussed on the 8th. Is that correct?
It'll be discussed on the,
I mean, discussed on the first. And then on the 8th is when we would
approve the warrant.
Officially approved.
approve the warrant based on the feedback from the community on the first. Does that make sense?
if you wanted to make sure that, like, yeah, no, it makes sense. Sorry, I'm half out of it right now. I'm trying to think
No,
of
no, it's
all the steps
been a
of
long
what
day.
needs to be
Just don't
done.
want-
So
I want to do this the right way.
you could recess this meeting at the end of this meeting till after the public hearing on the first, in case there's any immediate action that you needed to take right after. Obviously not a full meeting, but re-adjourn this or reopen this meeting,
Right.
Mhm.
on the first. If there's a motion or a vote that needs to be happened, you can do it. If not, you open the meeting and then you motion to adjourn. But you've already changed the meeting from the first to the 8th, so
Right.
that would,
I feel fairly confident that you could get that article.
and it'll be ready and you can approve it on
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you can send it out to us, like, once you have it drafted, and we can give you our immediate feedback just over email individually.
So earlier we made a motion to accept this draft,
Mhm.
but now we're going to amend this draft.
Mhm.
Correct?
with the warrant article to be determined.
Well, no, because we approved
We approved all those. We're just adding.
Mhm.
Okay, so just to cover ourselves, I guess I would like to make a motion that we ask the town manager to communicate with town's attorney to draft a warrant article in regards to the future of the old church on the hill.
warrant options for church,
um, Or sale options, or sale or lease options for the old church on the hill. Does that cover everything that may or may not happen?
Mhm.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, aye.
Peter, I,
Sandra, I.
Public comment.
now, if doing this or trying to do this is gonna take you away from other things that you need to spend your time on, then don't feel like it is the top priority.
No, I'll get it done. I blew up most of the big projects
Okay.
last night at 10 o'clock when I sent them off to you. So, no, I don't think this is something that's not doable. This should be, I should be all right. I mean, obviously, before I bring something to him, I'm gonna research the statutes,
Mhm.
draft something, and then send it to him for his,
Right.
I think it'll be fine.
And I'm sure this isn't the first time that something like this has happened with a town, so it's
Yeah,
not
maybe,
uncommon.
right, maybe
Yeah.
worth reaching out to MMA first, just to see what they
Yeah, there
have
must be.
experience with, and then go from there.
I mean, I've certainly
You
heard
don't wanna-
that before.
Something to then find out, oh, we can't do it.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time in history that anybody's voted on something and they were like, you can't do that.
Mhm.
Oh, well,
I guess I can't do it.
yes, you can't do that.
Right.
So I mean, it's not unheard of, but obviously, ideally, it would be. The question. Yeah. Stay tuned. I'll get back to you. I'm thinking.
100%, we, for a long time now, have asked the community, if you have thoughts, ideas, suggestions, share them,
Mhm.
give them to us.
And I talked to somebody today that came up with that same idea.
Mhm.
I mean, getting the warrant article I don't want to say convoluted, but in depth, and because it's like after the first 8 words, it's like people aren't really paying attention to it.
Mhm.
And obviously, you've expressed the intent of this is to find the right person, group, or individual, or organization that would be willing to do something and invest the money.
Mhm.
I think the one question that the select board would need approval from the voters for is, does the select board have permission to sell, lease, whatever,
Mhm.
the old church? And then the specifics of that can be incorporated into the actual final transaction with that person, whether that's a contract or some of that information might just be the context of what's written in the notes of the question, whereas the question's only,
Right.
do you authorize
Would
it?
be, can we find a way to do this, keeping the
Mhm.
But
The
what's the
historic-
church?
the looks of the church intact, and if we can, then
Really
we
all
would
it is,
have to look
something
into,
to look at.
um,
I mean, at the end of the day, the approval that the town needs to give is the lease or sell that space.
Yep.
I think everybody's intent is the same, is that it not be bulldozed or,
Yeah, yeah.
fall into, look like an old haunted house in the movies, you know what I mean, which it kind of starting to look like right now. But, yeah,
'cause I think.
I have a
there's that
feeling,
piece that to say to somebody, we will make this an affordable piece to purchase if you agree to stabilize up whatever the language is, versus because then someone might say, well, okay, it's going to cost me next to nothing,
Mhm.
and I
You
can
never
now
know.
afford the work to do the work,
There's a lot of
and then
rich people out there that like to do weird things, so.
Mhm.
It could be
it-
wonderful.
it's an amazing space.
We
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
unfortunately, towns tend to be slow and, limited.
Mhm.
you're also dealing with other people's money. It's not.
Yeah.
All right, I'll come up with something.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'll send it off to you. Oh,
Right. Any other business or public comment?
Would it behoove us to?
Adjourn.
Like,
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to think of the word.
yes, that's the intent, but
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah, the
recess?
recess.
That would give us
Maybe
the
peace out.
opportunity that if something had to be done
Mhm.
on the first, we could do it, because if we don't recess, we can't have a meeting.
Right.
Oh, I
But
see.
if we recess this meeting
Mhm.
to the first, if
Yeah.
nothing else to be done, then we can just start the
Adjourn.
meeting and then we can start and adjourn all day and push.
All right. Well, before we do that, do we need to go into executive session for this part? Or is that for another night?
we probably should.
Okay.
That'll be 6F. 6. I didn't put it on your.
I'll make a motion that we extend the meeting.
I'll second that. All in favor, or any discussion?
8:22 for recording.
All in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, aye.
Peter, aye.
Sandra, I.
Um, Oh,
D.
yes, 6D. I'm glad you caught that because I skimmed right over it.
So I'll make a motion pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 456D. We enter into executive session.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, aye.
Peter, aye.
Sandra, I.
And that's to discuss,
The town manager contract.
yeah, town manager's contract. Yep.
At 8.
Oh, at
Oh,
8:24.
8:24. All right, we're back.
All right, we're out of executive session. 8:41 PM. We just were reviewing the town manager's contract and no decisions or changes were made on that at this point. Is there any further discussion? No? Then I'll make a motion that we recess this meeting until the 1st.
April 1st, following.
The
The warrant
Public-
article.
public hearings.
Okay,
um,
thank you. All those in favor, bye-bye.
Say like aye.
Peter, I?
Robert,
Thank you, everybody.